A voice that makes you trust. A touch that feels safe. And yet, behind the mask, something far darker. Dark psychology isn't about monsters under the bed. It's about the ones who walk among us. From the charming killer to the cunning con artist to the leader who bends minds to their will. We're unraveling the shadows they cast. Every mind has a dark side. Subscribe and we'll show you yours. Welcome to the first episode. Why do people commit evil acts? The psychology of the Dark Triad. Picture this: a charming neighbor, a trusted CEO, a devoted partner. They smile, they reassure, they seduce, until the mask slips, and all that's left is the wreckage of broken lives. This season on Behind the Behavior, we're not just recounting crimes, we're dissecting the invisible weapons wielded by history's most terrifying minds. The calculated lies of con artists, the cold manipulation of serial predators, the godlike control of cult leaders. How? By exposing their psychological blueprint, the Dark Triad. 3 traits coiled like a serpent in the human psyche: narcissism's blinding ego, Machiavellianism's ruthless calculus, psychopathy's chilling void of empathy. Together, they form a foundation of darkness, a recipe for predation hiding in plain sight.
We'll trace this triad through bloodstained histories and velvet-tongued deceptions, not to shock you, but to arm you. Because recognizing these patterns, that's the first step to diffusing them.
We see the crimes, the cons, the shattered lives. But beneath them lies a hidden science of manipulation. This is dark psychology, the systematic study of how predators weaponize human behavior, turning empathy into vulnerability, trust into traps, and minds into weapons. But defining dark psychology is only the first step. What makes this field vital is how these invisible weapons leave real-world wreckage. Because recognizing these patterns isn't academic, it's armor. It's what stops a con artist mid-scheme, halts a gaslighter's distortion, and pulls survivors back from isolation into clarity. This is why we go behind the behavior. Understanding why dark psychology matters gives us the power to recognize manipulation. But to truly disarm it, we must decode its core engine, the Dark Triad, where narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy converge into a blueprint for predation. Narcissism, the pathological self-obsession and entitlement. Machiavellianism,
The ruthless, strategic exploitation and deceit, psychopathy, the profound impulsivity and absence of empathy.
While these traits exist on a spectrum in everyday life, their extreme convergence crafts dangerously predatory individuals, con artists who drain fortunes, partners who weaponize love, or killers who charm before they kill. Understanding this triad isn't about labeling people, it's about recognizing the patterns that hide in plain sight. We've explored dark psychology's foundations. Now, we descend deeper into the toxic engine powering history's most dangerous minds, the Dark Triad. Narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. Separately, these traits warp behavior, but together, they forge predators. Think of them as a blended cocktail of destruction. Narcissism is the blinding spotlight. I deserve your wealth, your love, your life. The partner who love bombs you into debt, then blames you for their sacrifices. Machiavellianism is the chess master. Your trust is my game board. I'll sacrifice you in 3 moves. The coworker stealing credit while whispering poison about rivals. Psychopathy is the emotional void. Your pain is static, your fear efficient, the charming neighbor collecting secrets to blackmail an entire street. Alone, they're dangerous. Intertwined, they create monsters who don't just break rules, they rewrite them. But to understand how these traits work together in the real world, we need to meet one of the most infamous criminals in history. Ted Bundy wasn't a monster who lurked in shadows. He was a law student, a crisis hotline volunteer, a man described as charming and normal by neighbors and peers. Beneath this facade, he murdered at least 30 young women in the 1970s. Bundy's power lay not in brutality alone, but in his ability to weaponize psychology itself. Ted Bundy was not just a killer, he was a living embodiment of the Dark Triad: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. Bundy's narcissism fed his sense of entitlement. He believed he deserved absolute control over his victims, not just in life, but in death. His crimes didn't end with murder. He returned to the sites where he left the bodies, grooming their hair, applying makeup, and carefully positioning them. It was a grotesque ritual, a way to relive his ownership long after life had left them. His Machiavellianism emerged in the careful crafting of a persona designed to disarm. He often posed as harmless, wearing an arm sling, leaning on crutches, or carrying books, a man who appeared to need help. This was no accident. It was a calculated trap, exploiting women's empathy. More than once, he used the same ruse, pretending to struggle with heavy books, asking a woman to help load them,
into his Volkswagen. Once close enough, there was no escape. Bundy's psychopathy revealed itself in his complete emotional void. He felt no remorse, only irritation when his murders were interrupted. In court, he smirked at the families of his victims, seemingly relishing the pain he caused. Even in prison, his detachment persisted. He wrote romantic poetry as though nothing had happened, as if his life and his crimes existed in separate worlds. Bundy's charm wasn't casual, it was engineered. He built trust the way an architect designs a building, deliberately, step by step. He mirrored his victims, adopting their speech patterns, interests, and hobbies to create a false sense of connection. He manufactured vulnerability through his injured act, triggering the natural human instinct to nurture and protect. And he used social camouflage to perfection, targeting educated, cautious women, the type least expected to fall prey, because society would never suspect them to be in danger. As forensic psychologist Dr. Catherine Ramsland put it, he didn't look like a killer because he looked like everything society trusted: white, educated, articulate. The real horror of Bundy was not just the violence, but the jarring contrast between his public image and his hidden reality. Public persona, law student, suicide hotline volunteer, engaged to a wealthy woman. Hidden reality, obsessed with necrophilia, used insights to manipulate victims, stored decapitated heads in his apartment. Bundy lived a double life so extreme that it forced the public to confront an unsettling truth. Evil doesn't always look like a monster in the shadows. Sometimes it seems like the man next door. Bundy epitomizes the Dark Triad's lethal synergy. Narcissism made him crave godlike control. Machiavellianism engineered opportunities. Psychopathy allowed him to switch empathy on and off like a tool. Crucially, his charisma wasn't magnetism. It was calculated exploitation of human wiring. First, hijacking trust cues. Second, leveraging women's socialization to be polite. And third, exploiting law enforcement's bias toward non-threatening men. Bundy's legacy isn't his brutality. It's his blueprint for how darkness hides in light. Understanding his tactics isn't about memorizing crime scenes. It's about recognizing that danger often wears the mask of normalcy. The same traits that made him monstrous exist on a spectrum around us: in toxic partners, fraudulent leaders, or abusive bosses. By dissecting Bundy, we don't feed infamy, we demystify predation. This was just the first step into Behind the Behavior. If you want to keep your guard up against the most manipulative minds in history, subscribe to Midnight Murmurs and join us next time as we explore the chilling world of true psychopathy.